going to try and have that up.
We're going live! Yay!
Yay!
We are live.
Hi.
I know a couple of people are already because we were talking earlier.
Because we were late.
And we were late. It's true. Maybe people just quit. They were like, it's 11 minutes.
They gave up.
They're not going live.
We are.
But we are absolutely going live. So, Jen.
Already happened. Hi.
Take it away.
Hello.
Tonight's show brought to you by Jen.
No.
Oh, did I not mention that when you were on your way over here?
Oh, no, you did not.
Okay, well, yeah, so Jen's running the show here.
Oh, why?
I'm just kidding.
Okay, thanks.
But.
Because I don't want to run your whole show.
And, yeah.
Do you want me to be in charge of that?
Do you remember how to get... Oh, there it is. Live chat.
I do.
I was going to set it right here so we can
Oh,
watch.
that's right. You have your little pad stand that you lost.
That I threw on the ground.
Just got angry and
Sorry,
threw it on
everybody.
the ground.
Yeah, I just threw it.
Struggle is real
Nothing
this
was
evening.
working. Nothing at all. Everything was broken. And now it's almost working. So, almost there. Hey, Matt. And Tyler and Aaron and Kate and Lord Vader and Eric and Brian. And, yeah, that's everybody. Okay, so.
Well, I would be surprised if Brian wasn't there.
I would be surprised if Brian wasn't there too, because of a lot of reasons. And Justin joined us. Yay!
Hi.
You know the feeling of being broken? Yes, Justin. I know you know the feeling of being broken. Sorry.
Sad days.
Um,
I'm right there with you.
So, a few weeks ago, because I think it's been about 2 weeks since I streamed last. It's been a while.
I know you've been doing them while I'm at work, so I don't
That's also true.
don't really know.
I think it's been 2 weeks since I streamed, or over
Brian's
2 weeks.
a better
a
person to
little
answer
bit.
that question.
Yes, Brian would know. Brian could also look back and tell me, for sure, if he wanted to.
Maybe he doesn't.
2 weeks, yep.
Okay.
So, and the reason for that is I've been busy doing stuff and things in other
reasons.
places for reasons and because of stuff. And I know that's super nondescript. Actually, most of the reason is I was not in a place where I had anything like short of, I had basically dial-up internet speed. For those of you that don't know what dial-up is, because I know a bunch of you are younger, it's
young.
incredibly slow internet speed. It's
Carrier
not,
pigeon slow.
you can't stream. It takes like hours to download an email or a picture or anything like that. So,
Way out in Talkeetna, Alaska.
yes, way out in Talkeetna in the rain and the cold and the brush. But Morse code slow. It's true. It is Morse code slow.
Yes,
Like,
it's true.
yeah. Not that this has anything to do with the Legion, but the first time I used DSL when I went and visited a friend of mine who worked for Microsoft, I literally broke down because I could not think in between clicking on stuff.
You couldn't handle the speed.
I couldn't handle the speed, and so I was crying, laughing on his desk, and he thought I had lost it totally. But I was just like, you gotta understand, I've come from this place where we have to click and then like go do a load of laundry or go to the store
then come back.
and come back and then click and then like go get some coffee and come back and then click, and it just takes forever. Anyway, so tonight I wanted to mostly dedicate to talking about support crew, because they are, especially anybody that does support crew, like Jen, who has the most, I think you have the most support crew, like out of uniform support
Yes.
crew troops of
I do.
anybody in the garrison here.
I do.
And
I have 30.
30, jeez. And you still came back.
Technically 31, because that last night shift visit.
That's
One of those
true.
night shift visits
That's
did not.
true.
I did not, was not in costume for.
Yep.
31.
And yeah, so, and then Brian's done a lot, who's on the stream and moderating tonight. I've done a couple, because I've made it a point that anytime we have longer troops, I am going to be support crew for at least part of it and not be in costume for the whole thing.
We also harassed him a lot.
Well, that's true. I threatened Jen that I would do it, and she didn't believe me. So then I followed through on my threat. Or promise. I mean promise.
Promise.
That should have been promise. Yes, that's the word, promise.
I threatened, he promised.
Exactly. So, and I will say, compared to being in costume, it's a whole different world.
It's a whole different experience.
Yes, it's very different, because in costume, and I'm not going to say that everybody can do it, because it definitely requires you to be alert and very observant and willing to interact with people. And a lot of the reason that some people get these costumes that they get, stormtroopers or whatever, is because you get to put a bucket over your head and disappear, and you don't want to interact with people.
They're not comfortable doing that.
So, and if for some weird reason it's easier to interact with people when you have a mask on, because you feel, introverted people feel protected when they have a mask on. So
makes sense.
Totally makes sense. But that being said, it's a very important and very crucial job. And anybody who's thinking about getting into this but doesn't have armor yet or a costume yet, I always encourage them to go to a troop or two, talk to their local garrison.
Experience what it's like.
Yeah, go experience a troop, but do it as help. Do it as support crew. It doesn't mean you'll be like the one out there telling people to not hit stormtroopers or anything like that, but just go and help. Talk to your local garrison or outpost or whatever and see if you can go help at an event, because it's eye-opening for one to see how people react and respond, and the interaction of the people who are there to see the troops and stuff, and then it's also eye-opening, like you get a lot better understanding of what it's like to wear armor, especially if you get the chance to even just put a bucket on for a few minutes. So yes, I will say a good support crew person.
It also allows you to know how to better guide your support crew. Because if you have a new support crew that does not necessarily have any experience, but you have supported before, you can help better guide them on how to help you and how to take care of you in a large crowd. Right.
True. It's true. And I will say, for me, after having been in costume, because I did a lot in costume before I did anything not in costume, it's definitely eye-opening after you've worn a helmet when you can't see or hear, to understand that from that perspective of then going out and being on the outside and having to help people, or direct your crew as you're walking around, telling them there's a step or a lip or a doorway or something low, or there's a kid running at them with a baseball bat. Hopefully not very often, but it happens.
I had to yell at children.
It happened recently.
The other day.
And it wasn't a baseball bat, but it was a big stick or something, right? Was it a stick?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, anyway. And, so.
I had to go all pit bull for reals. They were coming at Jake. With long, pointed objects.
Big, long, giant, pointed objects. Tyler, you're trying to get cadet status to do a Chili's cook-up October 14th. Really excited for the Alpine Garrison. Fantastic. That's awesome.
Nice work.
Congrats, and I hope you get it. How do I stop Ryan from going off and exploring? You mean like off into the woods? We don't really try and stop him much.
We don't.
Like, he knows that if where the group is and what's happening, and he can kind of...
Here's the thing.
Figure things out.
You always have a rogue.
Yes.
And I learned very quickly, to save my sanity, that you just warn the rogue that if you go off on your own, you are on your own, and I am not going to be there to protect you if you get mobbed.
Exactly.
Go and figure it out on your own. If you still want to go, go. If not, I'll help you.
Yeah.
Ryan still continues to rogue.
Yeah. And I will say, for those of us in costume...
And I don't follow him.
It's very important to listen to the people who are not in costume, because you have to trust them.
I see like 10,000 things that he does not.
Yeah. So they're totally aware of tons of things that I am not, including the time, because I can't look at a watch or anything when I'm doing this. And so whatever Jen tells me to do, I do, because I trust her implicitly. And you're wise to listen to your support crew. Yeah, so let's see. Gossip 2017. Yeah, there we go.
Yes.
Matt, if you want to come up here and troop with us, let us know ahead of time so we can let you know like when our troops are and stuff like that. We'd always welcome anybody to come up here and troop with us anytime. It's a lot of fun.
We're a happening place to be, you're just saying.
We are very happening. Yes. This month alone we have like six,
a lot.
7?
We're getting busy.
A crazy amount. And I know this is like the busy time period for troops and stuff, but it is very busy. And that's largely like 90% well, maybe 102% thanks to
Brian.
Brian, and what, like 98% Brian and 2% you, 3%
Like
you,
99% Brian
97
and 1%
and 1% you. Okay.
Yes.
Brian would probably disagree with that on the percentages at least, but it's in that range. I think we're pretty close in the range. It's like probably minus 3%.
Because
me.
like 19 months later, all I have to do with the hospital visits, I mean, it's still a lot of work, but
you set those up just by date.
Yes, I just have to
And-
email them, hey, 3 months in advance. These are the dates we're thinking of. Like I've created this ease.
Yes.
I've made it
Which
easy
was-
for myself. Regional
Hey.
is a different story. We're still working
Oh
on
my,
that. We're
yes.
working out those kinks. But
Hey Tom, welcome to the stream.
Brian does 118 million% of the work.
Yes, I'm like minus 6 or 7%, so that knocks him down to closer to 100%. But it's closer. I will say it is nice with regional and with Native Medical Center now. The amount of work to start doing what we do with them was a lot, and mostly it was just trying to get in the door
Yes.
to get the okay to do that, and that takes a lot of work. And I totally understand why hospitals are so careful. They have huge regulations that they have to be aware of and careful of with their patients, and then they probably have a ton of people beating down the door with every sort of weird costume furry thing that you can imagine.
They do.
And they don't, they
They
do
do
have to vet their
constantly.
volunteers, and I totally understand that. But I'm super glad that we get to do it now.
I'm incredibly grateful.
It's because it's awesome. And yeah, the last video I posted was our last visit to Providence. Which Miranda, the Pink Tuscan, was up in the area for.
Garrison founder.
Yeah, she started the outpost 12, almost 13 years ago. And that was the first time she'd ever trooped in Anchorage in 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. Just like when we went down there for the John Williams concert, that was the first time anybody from anybody in Alaska besides from Juneau had ever come to troop with her. She'd had somebody from out of state come and troop with her before, but anyway, that kind of blew my mind.
Let's focus. We're getting off topic.
Back to topic.
Handling. Support
So,
crew.
handling. What would you say are the keys? And Brian, you can answer this too since you're chatting. The biggest keys to being a good handler.
You have to, one, constantly pay attention.
Yeah.
So, big pet peeve of mine with other handlers is them being on their phones all the time. Because you obviously cannot pay attention to what is going on
Right.
if you are on your phone in your own little bubble. Taking pictures is one thing, but your head constantly has to be on a swivel at all times, especially in hospital visits are kind of a unique situation because you can relax a little bit. Big crowds, big situations, you have to pay attention at all times.
Mm-hmm.
And this, you have to make sure that you have eyes on all of your characters at all times, especially if you have a lot of them and not a lot of support crew.
Yeah.
It's worse with teenagers and adults.
Yeah.
They like to grab things, they like to touch, they like to push buttons, they like to pull on capes, they like to steal weapons, they like to do stupid stuff.
They like to hit.
They like to hit.
Not like come up and try and punch somebody out, but like come up and like do the buddy thing and punch them. And
Yes.
it does not feel good when you're in armor.
Yes.
It really hurts. And it's not good for the armor either.
You have to be aware of small children.
Mm-hmm.
And your character's inability to see that obviously, is included in the landscape.
Right.
But small children, like John at Trick or Treat Town almost took out a small kid because he was, maybe 3 feet tall,
Right.
if that, came running in his legs. You can't see. It also helps you interact with the children. You can't see the requests for high fives.
True.
You can't see them come up to you
Yeah.
and try and talk to you because you have so much going on in your helmet that you can't see them all
Right.
or hear them talking to you. So it helps your characters interact with the kids as well. It helps you connect the two.
Yeah. And that even like at the last troop we did, which was Saturday, right?
Yes.
The Trunk or Treat Town.
Mm-hmm.
There were a bunch of times, and I am a little bit lucky because I have a chin vent in my helmet, so I can see directly in front of me, but only directly in front. And then there's a big blind spot everywhere else. So, but there were at least a dozen times probably where Jen would say, Lord Vader, there's a high five waiting, or something like that,
Yes.
just to let me know, and then I could kind of look around and find them real quick,
Yeah.
or Jen, if they were way off to one side, would behind, say behind you, to your left, to your right, or whatever, so I could find the kid. But that's probably the thing I would say for support crew from when I've done it, is being alert and paying attention to what's going on around you, all around you, is vastly important. And then I think Brian said it too, people that are afraid to speak out. Yeah.
Yes.
For being a support crew and working well, you have to be
You
willing to take charge and be
have to
loud.
be able to be loud. You have to be able to get sassy with people.
You do.
Because a lot of times they don't listen or they don't care, like those kids Saturday that kept coming at you. They would run at Jake and they would circle and try and hit him, and they kept doing it. And even though I was standing I got very pitbull like and very protective and I got very close to him, they still kept trying to do it, and I had to really yell.
Yeah.
You can't. That's one thing that can get frustrating, is in a huge crowd we're getting mobbed, handlers are not speaking out because they're afraid to.
Yeah.
That makes it really difficult for the characters. I mean, it makes it difficult for all of us, but it makes it difficult for non-helmeted characters, because we really have to step up and handle, essentially, because like at the teddy bear picnic, we were getting mobbed bad.
Yeah.
And we had great handlers, but they were not they were afraid to speak up.
Yeah.
And push people back. You have to be sassy. You can't be afraid to get into it with people.
Yeah. You have to take charge and
you can
support
do
crew.
it. You can do it in a way that you're not being nasty, and sometimes you have to be. I've had to be.
Yeah.
For lack of better options, because they're not listening. But
yeah, you have to be willing to take charge and be proactive. You have to be proactive. You can't be reactive and wait for something to happen, because it'll be terrible if it does.
Yes.
And I will say, I think the best thing about good support crew when you're in costume is that it allows you to stay in character and not have to break the character to handle a situation, which I've done on occasion. There's been a couple of troops where we were spread out weird, or some weird stuff happens every once in a while, and I've had to in costume grab or let a kid know that they couldn't be grabbing or touching, or like the elementary school troop that John and I did. Never again. I had better visibility than he did, so I was scanning his backside and his front to make sure kids weren't getting back there, because at least I have a cape kind of protecting my back stuff
and all of your equipment
and all my equipment.
Screw with.
Yeah. So, but that's the thing with being support crew. You have to be really proactive and be alert to what's happening and what's incoming. The nice thing is that for the most part, once you get some rules laid down, and by rules I don't mean like written down rules or yelling rules, but
especially if you have characters that you troop with often, you get a system down.
Yeah. And once, like at a big event where you have a lot of people, provided you don't have like 360 degrees of access, but you're against a wall or in a booth or whatever, and once you establish a line, people just generally kind of start to fall into that line. Every once in a while you'll get somebody who's clearly not living in this world mentally. They're in their own world somewhere, and then they decided to walk in front of everybody who's been waiting nicely for a few minutes, and you get to kindly direct them to the back of the line. But
and Brian makes a couple of good points. Like, you really do. I've done it so much that I don't really have to think about what people normally do, what the crowd normally does. And it's all, you also cater it to the type of crowd you're in. Like, the Kids Day crowd is obviously different than a crowd significantly different than a crowd that we would encounter at the Arc of Anchorage, or at a Make-A-Wish event, or at any.
Yeah, and actually those are great examples, because like at the Kids Day event, even though this year went really way more smooth, because Brian did some fantastic planning. We all did some planning, but Brian really thought a lot of it through, and we were able to get the balusters or banisters, whatever, things,
the things.
to make
For
people
reasons.
go in lines and snake around and stuff like that. And because we'd had a lot of experience with the first Kids Day that we did, which is the first time Jen ever helped, and she came back. Like that takes a lot more work and a lot more thought as to where characters are and how they're going to be there and how we're going to move in and out of the crowd to get breaks and stuff like that. That's a huge deal. Events like the Arc of Anchorage, which is odd because I would have thought it would have been harder, but that's one event where
I was able to leave you guys unattended.
Right. And
not have to worry about anything really happening for the most part.
Yeah, we feel comfortable enough to go wander around, and I mean we're still in the same room. We're not like going to different parts of the building or anything. But
but even this weekend at the trunk or treat event, I mean characters were able to kind of go out on their own, and I was able to leave you guys unattended. And it was comfortable.
It was comfortable and smooth.
People were respective for the most part, except for those teenagers. But
which kind of came toward the end.
Yes, I have done it so much, and I've had people comment on this. When they watch me handle, my head is constantly on a swivel. My eyes are constantly moving. My head is constantly moving, and I've done it so much that I am aware of what different people in different age groups normally do, and what I need to watch out for. Between kids and teenagers and adults, or like at the Aces game when I know I have to account for alcohol being involved.
Yes.
Like for me, because I've done it so much, it's become second nature. So I catch a lot of things before it gets to you guys.
True.
Which I don't expect every handler to be able to do that because that's a year and 30 troops later.
Right. Yes. And not to mention the fact that you have a skill set from your job.
Yes, I
that
do.
you already are paying close attention to people's cues
Yes.
physically, what they're going to do.
Yes.
Because you have to. And that's not something that everybody gets. And Brian, same thing. He reads people well because of stuff that he's done. In the past, he's developed the skill of being able to read body language and kind of know what to look for when somebody's going to try something stupid.
Yes.
That is a skill you develop, but it takes time and it takes some work. But yeah, just definitely like.
There's a lot of stuff that I
scanning
stop before it ever gets to you guys.
Yes, I have no doubt. There's been a few times where Jen's hat has appeared in front of my chin vent, and I realize somebody in my vicinity is looking at me funny or coming toward me or drunk and coming toward me or something like that, and then I know, okay, I'll just stay right here and wait until Jen tells me to move or everything's good. Tyler says Brian mentioned once that he talked to a presumed troublemaker as in character to throw them off.
And that's happened sometimes, especially when we're really light on support crew.
Yeah.
Where you've had to do that, or stormtroopers have had to do that, and you stay in character, but you're firm about it.
Yep. Yeah, and I like, especially because I've got buttons and lights everywhere that kids want to push, and so I've come up with a thing of like, letting them know they're not authorized personnel to make adjustments to my suit.
I'm not even authorized personnel.
In character. And then if they take it a step further and they start pushing toward it, I'll grab their hand and push it out of the way. Or if Jen is close by, she'll grab their hand and tell them to back away, period. And that usually is about all it takes. If they push beyond that, then there's a problem where we're going to move to a different area. They're going to have to just go away from us, period. And that's happened once or twice, but
it has. You also
always seems to be the tween teenager age group that happens with.
Yes. Teens and adults are worse than small children.
It's true.
Beware of that. You also have to be able to. I mean, not every event and environment you're able to do this in, but you have to be able to adjust your characters to the crowd. Sometimes it's not appropriate to allow the crowd 360-degree access to your characters.
Yes.
There's a lot of times where that's not appropriate, and you have to be able to find a way to back them up against something.
A wall or something, a barrier that keeps people from behind them.
Yes, something, especially if you're light on crew and you don't have a lot of people that can surround all of your characters. The teddy bear picnic is a good example of that because I had to back you guys up against a fence.
Hedge or fence or
Yes.
something, right? Yeah.
We were getting mobbed
Yeah.
hard.
Which we walked into because we were starting the parade. We walked
Yes.
into the biggest crowd in the park, and of course, because I'm almost 7 foot tall in costume, and then we have a bunch of other people in costume, it was an immediate like flies to honey, sort of like,
Yes.
oh my gosh, yeah. So that happens.
I'm the most. I mean, and I'm aware of this, and I adjust as necessary. I'm the most attuned to Jake, because for the longest time, it was just a couple of us. There were not 30 members. It was Jake, Brian, and I, and John and Ryan and Jade. Like, there weren't very many of us. So, and he's one of my best friends. So I'm the most attuned to him in those situations. So I am the closest to him. But like in that situation, had to try and be everywhere because we were getting so
we
mobbed.
were getting mobbed. Yeah. So go ahead.
But yeah, I mean, and he's so attuned to me handling for him that like he just watches my movement, and if I'm standing in front of him, he knows that there's a reason I'm standing in front of him.
Yeah, and that goes back to what Brian said a little bit earlier in the chat about trust, that trust is earned and not given. And it's true after 30, well, way more than 30 now.
Way more than 30 now, because I do it in costume
a lot
every
of
time.
troops together, like even in costume, I can read Jen pretty well and tell if she's watching somebody particular. Even if I can't find that person when I'm in costume, I know that she's watching out for somebody particularly, and so I'll tend to stay a little closer.
Probably almost 80 troops-ish.
Yeah.
Something like
That's
that.
a lot.
A lot.
So Kylo Ren asked, are you supposed to stay in character through the whole troop? And I will say yes, to a point.
It's people's preference.
And it is people's
Some
preference.
don't. Jake always does.
I do. Although
as much as possible.
I will stretch the character when I'm in the hospitals and dealing with sick kids.
The hospital is the only place that changes.
Any other time I stay in character unless it comes to somebody like getting physical or something like that, then I'll break character.
Our Kylo Ren
but I'll
does,
still use the character as a point of intimidation.
Our Stormtrooper does. Stormtroopers do for the most part. The only ones that I don't see stay hardcore in character are Jedi.
Yeah, that's true. And they got a lot more leeway of what they can do anyway.
But most everyone we troop with, and it's kind of a general... I have a hard time doing it because I handle so much.
Yes.
So, it is hard, especially with Brian gone, and I don't often have that help. And it's when we've had a lot of events where it's just me, or it's just one other person, and we're in a big. I find it difficult.
Yeah.
Because I have to I have to kind of balance the line between handler and character while in costume.
Right.
I've always kind of found that line difficult.
Yeah. And, yeah.
Brian is way, way better at it than I am. Way better. And maybe because he didn't handle so much for so long beforehand.
That could be part of it, yeah.
Maybe.
I don't
know.
He might chime in here again. Yeah, so Brian says that Lucasfilm requests are that we don't break character without clear separation, step behind a curtain, take the helmet off and stuff, and come back out with it.
It's also I just realized this after he said that. It's also hard for me to break character because I have other roles.
True.
So other events where I've had to do PR stuff.
Yes.
And I've had to do PR stuff in costume. It's obviously hard. Like at the fair when we were doing TV stuff.
Right.
At May the 4th when we were doing radio stuff. When the PR leaches into the event while I'm in character, it also makes it hard to stay.
Yeah, so, and I will say, like, I'm very careful not to break character and not to take the helmet off in front of people. I did it once or maybe twice in the hospital because a kid really wanted to meet me, but they were terrified, and they're going through enough. So I was like, I'll take it off there. Yeah. But other than that, in public,
took a knee, pulled his helmet off.
Yeah, other than that,
it's the only place I'll ever see him do it. Brian says it's easy for him because he has split personalities. I'll go with that.
Yeah, that works. That
works.
Sure, we'll go with that one. That sounds
We
good.
love you anyways.
We do. And yeah, Brian, I noticed earlier you said people are they will listen to a loud, firm voice with clear instructions and directions 99%
Yes,
of the
they
time.
noticed
And that's
that
true.
about me Saturday when I had to. They asked us to direct traffic.
Yes. Oh, that was fun because they asked us to move the line out of the driveway. And I didn't get any footage from that.
We should have. But
I wish I had, but I didn't. It was just, we were having fun.
yes.
And so Jen goes over
I
and
was the
just
loud, firm voice.
loud, firm voice,
Well,
and then
I just all
behind
stood
her
there
is
and
all the
looked cool.
stormtroopers and me
Yes.
all walking toward them, and the whole line just shifted over to the edge of the road real quick and stayed there.
And they're all like, "Thank you, it was so awesome." And Jake's like, "It was just Jen." And
It
her
was
loud,
just
firm
Jen,
voice.
yeah, and the rest of us just walking behind
Just
her.
kind of stood there and looked cool.
So, Tyler wants to know what were their reactions when I took off the helmet. So then they would come over. And,
It was the
and,
exact reaction he was hoping for.
Yeah, then they would come over and talk to me or give me a high five or whatever like that, and that's all I wanted. And usually, if I can get a kid to give me a high five or a fist bump, then that physical touch like helps to break down
Yes.
the fear barrier that they have. Which oddly enough, most kids don't have a fear barrier with Vader.
Most little teeny kids,
They
don't.
like
they
can't
come
wait
at
to
you
come over
laughing and squealing.
yeah, they're so
and-
excited,
yes.
and I don't whatever. Anyway, the adults have fear barriers
Yes.
sometimes.
More than kids do.
So, yes, more than kids do. Yeah, Brian says the only time I break character is when you ask me to hold my breath. It's true, but it's technically not breaking character because he did hold his breath in Empire Strikes Back when he was waiting for Luke in the freezer chamber. So that's my alibi there. I do wish I had one really big, long, loud breath for after I hold my breath.
should.
I just have this huge,
would be
explosive, like, okay, finally I can breathe again. Tyler wants to know how you've not lost your voice.
Brian answered it for me.
He did?
Yeah.
Yes, that's
true.
exactly right. Speaking properly, and you can project your voice very loudly without
That's
hurting
true.
it at
I
all.
don't scream from my throat. I don't scream.
It's a
I
good
yell.
thing, too. You project.
I do.
You just take
That's-
charge and project, which is good. That's,
the sass is strong.
the sass. The sass is so strong. You have no idea. Mark. Hey, Mark. Welcome to the stream. With The Last Jedi around the corner, do you have any plans on getting a Return of the Jedi Luke lightsaber?
No, we can't. We can't. We're
We're
focusing
still
on support crew.
We're still talking about support crew. I will say I already have one of those, but anyway. So beyond that,
Don't help him squirrel. He's had trouble with that tonight.
yes, a lot of trouble. Probably asked, what are our thoughts on Toys R Us filing for Chapter
I have thought
11?
about that, and I don't know
I don't know how it'll affect
because
Toys
we
for
do
Tots.
a lot with the two of them. We did a lot with the two of them together.
Yeah, I mean, but Chapter 11 doesn't mean the company's going to go away.
That's true.
Necessarily, like it might, but it doesn't necessarily mean that yet. And I think that other
What
places
we
would
did
jump
with
in
them
the gap.
wasn't necessarily Toys R Us donating.
Right.
It was us encouraging patrons to buy lots of things.
To buy an extra toy or two and give it
Yes.
to Toys for Tots. And so, I mean, that can be done anywhere.
That can be done
there's
anywhere.
Toys. So, I mean, honestly, well, yeah. That's it. Right, and Brian's right. There's Toys for Tots is part of the Marines, and what the Marines do for charity work, it's not affiliated with Toys R Us. Toys R Us didn't start Toys for Tots, or run it, or own it, or anything like that.
They just happen to do a lot of events, a lot of drives
Yeah.
at or with Toys R Us.
Yeah. Have we ever escorted a celebrity? I saw the 501st escort the producer of Rebels at my local convention. So part of the fun of living in Alaska is you almost never get to meet anybody famous.
Yeah, never meeting anyone famous.
I mean, and it's technically not true. I have met a lot of famous people up here, but it's not like that. I just no. I've never escorted anybody famous. I guess the most famous person that I've escorted in costume would have been at the John Williams concert when we met some of the orchestra players that had been working on the episode 9 or 8 soundtrack. But we didn't escort them either. We just met them and said hi. So yeah, that, famous in that regard anyway, I guess. We have lots of politicians ask us to pose with them, and we get to say no.
Thanks, but no thanks.
Because we're not
We don't say
political.
it that way and make that face, but I mean,
Yeah.
he does in his helmet, but
Well, some of them.
I'm a face character.
Some of them I went to. Never mind.
Let's we're gonna cut Jake off there.
Yes, we're gonna
he'll-
just stop there because
that'll
I'll
be a big
get
squirrel
this
for him.
family-friendly show will go downhill
Yes.
fast. Tyler wants to know if he gets cadet status, which means he'll be able to handle
Yes.
at Alpine Garrison. Should he wear a formal suit? Because their manual
You
talked
don't
about
have
looking
to.
like a civilian.
Well, I'm assuming no. Every garrison I
Yeah.
would think is different, but I would assume, and we all know what happens when we do that a nice pair of pants and Star Wars apparel of some sort.
Yeah. Check with your, because you're Alpine Garrison, right? I think that's what you said. Check with them because sometimes they will provide a shirt for you to wear, or sometimes some of the people that you are helping to be support crew for will let you wear one of their jerseys. But yeah, wear, nice jeans or pants and some comfortable shoes because you'll be running
wanna
around
be
a lot.
comfortable.
You definitely want to be comfortable. And then, for us, we just ask that people wear a pretty obvious Star Wars shirt.
Yes.
And then sometimes, depending on the event, Brian and I have lent our hockey jerseys over to other people or something like that. But that's up to your local garrison and people. Kylo Ren, is it allowed to have duplicate characters at an event? It is not. The only exception to that might be at a convention because you can't control everybody out there. But as far as the 501st is concerned,
They don't want that.
anytime, and I should say any hero characters or face
character.
characters or named characters. Like you don't want two Darth Vaders
You
out
can
at the same
obviously
time.
have 700 stormtroopers. I mean, you can have
Yeah.
multiple.
Tons of those.
Yes.
But if there are two 501st Vaders, they either need to be in separate parts of the building where they're never going to be seen together. And this is per Lucasfilm's request. They don't want more than one hero character to be seen at any one time, which makes sense because there's not two Darth Vaders in the movies, or two Anakins, or two Obi-Wans, or two any of those. So, two Kylos would be weird.
Yes.
So yeah, they do not
was.
want that to happen.
It was weird.
Mark wants to know, how does going backstage work, such as going in areas that cannot access at certain events, such as SenchiCon backstage?
Like at SenchiCon, there is no backstage.
Yeah.
Like we didn't have
any
that's
special
a
room
unique,
or anything like that.
So that's a unique event for us because it's less. It's more casual.
Yeah.
It's the one event where you guys can chill without your helmets. It's
Right.
You don't have to stay in character quite so much because of the crowd and the type of people that are there.
Yeah.
Because of the demographic, because it's cosplayers. We see that as more of a recruiting event and less of a community event, if that makes
Right.
sense.
And then as far as like the event we're going to do tomorrow is at the Performing Arts Center.
Holy crap, that's tomorrow.
For events like that, everybody will absolutely, because it's a higher profile event, will keep our helmets on and
Yes,
stay in character
absolutely.
the entire time we're out.
SenchiCon
then-
is probably the only event you guys don't do that.
Yeah. Anything else, we try and at least get down a hallway and through a doorway where we're going to have a very low chance of running into anybody before we start taking helmets off and stuff like that. I'm a little bit more married to that. Some people are not quite as strict, but for me it's part of the character too,
Yes.
because the character can't take his helmet off without being in a special chamber. So that's partly why I do that. Let's see. First Order Troopers, Praetorian
I'm
Guards,
waiting for the answer
Executioners.
to Brand's question because that's a good point. Because I can answer that as well.
Mark Hoofman, you mean backstage? Yeah, so go for that.
Well, so it depends on the location in the event, of course. A lot of times it's that strong, firm voice.
Yes.
It's me splitting a crowd or a handler. I say me because it's normally it's always been so Brian and I. It's us splitting a crowd
Right.
in character
Yeah.
to...
Which technically does fit into your character.
Yes,
And it does
it
fit into
does.
Brian's character because
It does.
they're...
But even as a handler, it was still a strong, firm voice.
Yeah.
Splitting a crowd often. Like, now that we have the Death Star panels, we have built in a way, like
To escape.
Yes, we've built in a way to escape out the back.
Assuming we're in the right venue where we have space behind
Assuming we're in
them.
the right venue. We adjust accordingly. I don't know, because everyone is different, but a lot of times we're just outside, we're in a crowd.
Yeah.
And it's me splitting a crowd until we can get to our changing area.
So a good example of that is the 4th Avenue Theater
Yes.
anniversary that we did, because we changed at the Performing Arts Center and then we're in costume and walked
Several blocks.
2 blocks,
Couple blocks.
at least 2 blocks to get to where the event was being held. They had provided a tiny tent for us to take breaks in, but when we saw the tent, we realized that it wasn't going to work, and so we just elected to go the entire time, which was like 4 hours, without stopping and without taking breaks, because if we were going to take breaks, it meant a 2-block walk back, which also meant that the group that stayed, we had to do everything together as an entire group because we were outside in the open downtown Anchorage, and so it was just like, okay, go to the bathroom before we go because it's going to be 3-4 hours before we come back, and that's how we did that particular troop.
Yes, Brian is correct. It's me making sure that it can be done safely.
Yes.
I
Like
say me.
getting-
I
making
say me.
sure-
It's not always me. It's just habit to say that. It's definitely not always me.
Yeah.
It's making sure
We get through doorways well, or if there's
stairs,
a stairwell that we have to go up,
elevators.
down, elevator, anything like that, making sure that the whole group
the whole group
gets into and out of that space.
gets to a place where they can take their helmets off and then do what they need to do on their own.
Yes. So, congratulations, Fantastic Rage. You got your kit. That's awesome. You just finished school forever. Congratulations.
Yay!
Never stop learning, though. I'm really squirreling tonight. It's something else. Yes. Mark wants to know, what's the worst experience that our garrisons had with our handlers? I'd assume it was the elementary school, never again. The trouble with the elementary school is we didn't have any handlers.
I couldn't come.
Jen couldn't come, Brian couldn't come, and John and I were foolish enough to say, sure, we'll do that.
Sure.
Partly because the school promised us that they would provide some handlers, but the trouble was the instant we walked into the yard, which was outside 360 access, the handlers vanished.
Kids Day.
Yeah, the first Kids Day. That was kind of a nightmare too. It was you.
It was me. It was my first
Brian
event after a 12-hour shift, and there was 20,000 people, and they would take breaks, and people would get angry, and I thought I was going to get shanked by angry patrons.
We learned so much.
It was awful.
From the first Kids Day.
It was awful.
I'm sure a lot of other garrisons have been doing this for a while, but we hadn't been.
We hadn't been.
And not anything to this level, because a lot of the Star Wars characters that had been here before were not big giant draws.
Yes.
And so when you have a Vader or a Chewbacca or a Kylo Ren or some of the other really well-known characters, it becomes a huge draw. And so all of a sudden the crowd, instead of just kind of, oh, that's cool.
It's cool as a stormtrooper.
It becomes a thing that like they really want to come and get a picture taken. And so at Kids Day, basically what saved us was Brian had a super loud voice and would walk us in and out to take breaks, and then Jen, with people would get sassy about not being able to take pictures, and they've been waiting for 20 minutes already, because we had no idea that there'd be 1,000 people standing in line.
They were legitimately angry.
Yeah, and Jen would just go, "Suck it up, Buttercup." Not in those words, but
didn't have a choice.
But she handled it well, and
it was scary.
It was
a few tense moments.
It was like we learned a lot at that
Star Wars Reads Day was also another horrible. It wasn't.
It wasn't horrible, but we learned a lot there too.
Yes,
yeah,
we learned a lot.
And I will say that staying together as a group
is
helps it helps to mitigate in a place where you have access, where people have access to you from all sides. Staying together in a big group, close together, is important because it just people think twice about coming in and trying something stupid when there's a big group of people standing around. When it's one or two characters by themselves, people are way more in, mostly teenagers and tweens. They're way more apt
Always.
to try something stupid, and so yeah. And Barnes and Noble, the Star Wars Release Day, that was hard because we're in between all these bookcases and
the
aisles,
and it was weird.
And we were moving all over the store. It wasn't like we were together as a group.
They didn't have an area set up for us, so we were kind of everywhere.
And so if we do it again this year, we've already
even when I was there as a handler, there was not a good way for me to protect anyone.
Right. Yeah. So
because of the way the store was set up, it was just weird.
Yeah. If we do an event like that again, we'll pick an area and just say this is where we're going to be and be a group there.
Fantastic grades. Thank you for bringing that up, because another really important part of handling is watching your characters and making sure that everyone stays okay and constantly checking with them, especially if it's hot. Making sure that you're watching time and how long they're in costume and taking breaks. So we are pretty good about taking scheduled breaks. Normally,
yeah,
especially in smaller events, nobody is out more than an hour at a time without taking a break. And that's obviously a case-by-case basis depending on heat and what's going on. And again, I have done it so much that I am attuned to when people are not okay.
Yeah.
I know what Jake looks like when he's struggling.
Yes,
I know what Cody looks like or Brian or anybody else looks like when they need to stop.
Yeah.
But you have to be also watching how people are doing physically.
Yeah.
Because people have a habit of trying to tough it out and not say anything.
Right. And I'll say, for fantastic grades, the black necessarily isn't necessarily a factor. It is if you're in direct and really hot sunlight, but
so much up here.
It's not so much up here. It's just you are going to be hot and sweat in any costume, and so drinking a lot of water beforehand, drinking throughout the troop. Every time you take a break, drink something, and then drink a lot of after. And especially on hot days, take regular breaks. Figure it out ahead of time before you even go out. Say, look, every 45 minutes we're going to take a break, or every 30 minutes, or every hour, whatever it is. And you'll get a feel for what you can do and what you can handle. And then develop a trouble sign with your handler that's subtle, but that they know that means you need to get out fast. Yes. Like one friend of mine who's a Vader in Georgia, I just sent him a file of the broken Vader breathing sound, and he's got it on his iPod along with the regular breathing sound. And so when he needs to go take a break or needs to get out, he plays the broken Vader breathing sound once, and that immediately anybody who's there who's support crew knows that he needs to exit quickly. And either something's broken on his costume or he's just dying in the heat. He needs to get off quick.
So yeah, Brian brought up the Aces games.
Yes.
So another important roles of handling, you have to be organized. Well, everyone's life is easier when you're organized.
True.
It's also easier when you set guidelines and standards. Because it is like herding cats. And a lot of times you're limited on time. So like at the Aces games, it didn't seem like we were going very far, but traveling around the arena with 15 people in costume,
it took a long time
and it was difficult. So you have to, and people, they're like take their helmets off and they're like yakking and they're visiting and you
checked out.
Yes, they check out. So you have to keep people on track. You have to keep people on time. Hey, it's time to go and it's time to go now. Get your buckets back on and go. Or keep that you have this much time to drink water, to take a break, do whatever you need to do, and then we gotta go. Because it is very much like herding cats.
Yeah.
And good organizational skills. Again, the sass helps there.
It's true. The sass does help.
So, because it can get messy.
Yeah. Mark asks about, is there ever a time when handlers have to keep track of food, or do the active troopers on the troop just go out and buy fast food at a restaurant? For any troops, at least for us, for any troops we do that are going to be like over a mealtime, everybody tries, we encourage
long,
everybody to
like,
bring snacks.
all day troops.
Yeah. Or we plan together as a garrison and bring sandwiches. You know, somebody will bring sandwiches, somebody will bring Gatorade, somebody will bring water, and we'll try and fit it together as
Or
as
we
a group.
plan to go have a meal together before or after or whatever.
Yeah, and try and figure that stuff out ahead of time, especially for the big long troops. We try and plan a lot of that in advance to make sure it goes smoothly. Let's see. Fives asks if we have any clothes at the Alaska Garrison. We do have one. He's not super active right now because of his job, but I'm hoping that'll change this a little later this fall. Tyler wants to know if we ever go into groups of 3 or 2 two in costume and one in a handler.
Like Brian said, the Aces game is a really good example of this. We had to actually every Aces game we ever did for any event, any reason, we broke all the characters into individual groups, and we strategically placed characters in separate groups for reasons, different reasons.
Yep.
And place them with appropriate handlers, because they were going to, and then the 2 groups were on opposite sides of the arena. That doesn't happen a lot. Because normally up here we don't have events big enough to do it.
Yeah.
The fair would have been another one, but it wasn't that busy.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of other stuff going on. But the Aces games were the best example of that. So yeah, we do break into groups. A lot of times it was strategically done by Brian and I. Who fits best together, what characters go well together, and what handlers go well with those characters.
Yes. Let's see. Has Sarah ever handled?
Yes.
She has, right?
Sarah has handled.
Yeah. Once or twice?
She has. She is really cute. She's a little wallflower. She will admit that she has a hard time starting interactions with people.
Yeah.
But if people approach her, she's okay. She's good with interacting. So she has admitted that if she needed to step up and be sassy and say something or stop people from doing something, she would have a hard time with that.
Yep, and Brian's right too. Sarah also handled, and I handled for part of the Juno troop. We went out, Miranda and Bryce were in costume, and Sarah and Brian and I were handling for him, which was a lot of fun. And she did a Kids Day and the fair, and then, let's see, Jimmy, your bucket is in the shop, and you should be done by the week. Your robes, yeah, woohoo! I can't wait. That's awesome. Congratulations. Can't wait to see it. Mark asks, is coffee an important factor in handling?
Yes.
I assume it keeps you awake most
Yes.
of the day. Okay.
Before I started using Thrive, Jake would bribe me with coffee.
Yes, it's true. I would bring
Before I
Jen
was
coffee
in
just to say
costume.
thank you.
Yes.
It
was a stop built into our travel time.
Yes, it was. Very regularly.
Yes.
For me, I don't drink as much coffee as you might think from my vlogs. Because I seem to be getting coffee every single time I'm vlogging about stuff.
Yes.
But I actually try not to drink too much caffeine before a troop, because that happens, especially if I haven't eaten and you get all jittery and stuff like that.
He tries to take a selfie, and it's like...
Yeah. So a lot of times the coffee you see me drinking on these troops is decaf.
Vader does drink decaf.
And it's mostly just because I want something warm to drink, which makes no sense because I'm about to get in a really hot costume anyway.
I took them all in costume to Kaladi Brothers downtown to get coffee, and the baristas gave him a hard time for him ruling the empire on decaf.
Yes. Yes.
They gave you a really hard time about that.
They did. Congratulations, Truth. I hope you get approved.
Yay!
Let's see. Cranky Vader every troop. This is true. We don't want a Cranky Vader every troop.
No.
No,
we don't want that.
I don't drink hot chocolate. Sorry. No,
No.
not happening. Yeah, on the events, like how far out, Tyler asked how far out we plan events.
Normally it's 6 to 8 weeks.
Yes, that's what
Or
we
more.
shoot for. Sometimes we've done as little as like 2 weeks or less, but we try to do more than that because it gives everybody else time to plan
Yes.
and time to set their schedules with
It
work
just
and stuff like that.
depends.
But
Like,
it depends on the
how
event a
many
lot.
ungodly amount of months did those Aces games take? Forever.
I don't know, 8-9 months.
8,
I was
9,
working
10
on
months.
those for forever.
I schedule hospital visits. I do 3 months at a time, and I do them months in advance. Months and months in advance. So those are on the calendar way, way, way out.
Yeah. Yeah, and the only time we do something like super short notice would be is and I've told Jen this before, like at the night shift or something, if she runs into a patient that would really benefit from having us jump in there,
Special impromptu stuff at the hospital.
that I would totally like do everything I
Yes.
can to make it happen. But other like a birthday party, well, we don't
No.
do birthday parties anyway, but stuff like that, like that sort of stuff has to be planned out in advance. So
But
some of the other
it's
ones
usually at least a month. There's been
Yeah.
a couple times with like partners that we do a lot of stuff with that we'll do short notice stuff, but normally we don't.
yeah.
Try not to.
And normally most of them are good about giving us quite a bit of heads up now,
Yes.
especially. Who would handling a troop at a zoo? How would, I guess he means how would. Mark asks, how would handling a troop at a zoo work out? It sounds good and bad. I'm not sure if my
'Kay, well,
garrison
we're gonna
troops at
find
my local
out.
zoo. Yeah, we're going to
Halloween.
find out real soon.
Yeah, we're gonna do booth at the zoo with the Correctional Officers Association. We're gonna find out.
Which I'm
And we'll let you know.
really looking forward to. It should be lots of fun.
We don't know.
We don't know. I will say that, like, on the spot, when we can gauge crowd size and crowd intention, then that will dictate how much we move around. If the
Yes.
crowd seems uber eager, then we're going to find a wall and stick to
We're gonna
it so
stay.
that we
We're
have
not gonna wander.
a mode of access. If the crowd is really chill and really great, then we'll feel free to wander. And that's one of those things that you, both in costume and out of costume, or in costume being support crew, you get a feel for real fast. After a little while, you can read a crowd and go, yeah, these people are chill, or no, we're not moving at all. We're going to sit right by the door that our exit is.
I can do it pretty quick.
Yeah, you can size up a crowd in a hurry once you get used to it a little bit.
I need a foldable lightsaber to use as a weapon. It's a good idea.
That is a good idea. I don't even.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't even know what that is. Yeah, I'm trying to talk one of our people up here, a snow trooper, to get a picture by the polar bear at the zoo when we do that troop.
We'll make it happen.
We'll make it happen.
We love
Probably not in the cage,
you. We love you,
but
Justin.
we're getting a picture by
We love
that.
you, Justin.
Yes, Justin, I mean. Oh, cool, Jimmy. That would be fantastic.
Yay!
We'd love to have you. We always love having you be there.
Yes.
And you even made it on the vlog last time.
Heck yeah.
Outside the glass.
The Wolves Den.
The wolves. Yes.
Yes.
Justin, just think about what you could write home about
All
if you
the
do all these
possibilities.
things.
We can make that Timberline Garrison all sorts of jealous.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. Your zoo's pretty big, Mark. I bet it is. Open grass near massive lake in the middle of the zoo. Most organizations stand. Yeah. And that's the thing. You find a spot, pick it, and sit there, and then you can gauge the crowd's interest level or eagerness level, I guess is probably the
Yes.
best thing to be watching for.
When we schedule events, Brian and I know how much all prefer to wander and move around.
Yep.
So we try and do that as much as we can. But it always is crowd dictated. Always. Sometimes we just can't. It's just not appropriate.
Yeah. Spy Hunter, I assume you mean next Wednesday. I'll say an early happy birthday. May the force be with you. I might be streaming again before then, so stay tuned. Anyway, And Michelle likes your braid.
Oh, well, thank you, Michelle.
So.
Appreciate it.
All right. On that note, we're going to wrap things up because it's getting later up here. I know it's super late for most of you, especially those of you who are back east and stuff. But
and we have audio recording to do.
Yes, we do. We have to record a little segment for something. So we're going to say good night. You'll see, I'm going to try and get as much footage as I can from the PAC, the Performing Arts Center.
Yes.
I don't know exactly how much
we don't know how
they'll let
that's
us.
going to go or how we'll
But there'll be
do it
something.
Something.
What'll probably be is me getting my case in and out of the car. We do need a wearable camera. Yes. I can make that happen.
Okay.
So me getting my case out of the car, walking it into us getting all dressed up and walking out of the dressing room, and then the next thing you'll see is us walking into the dressing room.
Eventually, the Legion's just going to make a big video of you getting in and out of vehicles.
Oh, I know. It's so true. It's just
because all those vlogs end up on the troop reports.
So true. So I'd say thank you everybody for tuning in, and thanks for having such great questions. Thanks to my co-hosts tonight, for Jen and Brian. Thanks for moderating.
For streaming while I'm not working. Yay.
Yeah, we actually planned this when she wasn't working because of reasons.
Yes.
Anyway, thanks for liking and commenting, and thank you for subscribing. If you haven't already, like and share this video, subscribe, tell your friends about it. We'll say hi.
There's more shenanigans to come.
Oh, yes. Lots more shenanigans.
Always.
So thanks, everybody, for tuning in tonight, and we'll see you again soon on the next video.
Bye.